there have been an awful lot of things going on recently, and different thoughts and ways of being have come to mind. Now, earlier on today, I saw something about tricksters and allies. I thought that's interesting because we're going through a time at the moment when sometimes we can't be sure where we're going and who we should ask how to get there. If you do ask a Cheshire Cat, of course, he'll tell you if you don't know where you want to go, it doesn't matter how you get there. So this kind of presupposes that we always have in our heads an idea of where it is that we want to be, even when consciously we think we don't really know where we're going to go or how we're going to decide. I was also watching a film last night, and one of the characters said, when we throw a coin in the air, we always know which side we want it to come up, because we're disappointed when the one that we didn't want comes up. So that's a bit like Trickster Medicine. In North American native peoples, they have something called the Hioka. The Hioka is a person who does everything backwards. It's almost a kind of clown energy, but in a very serious way. They'll wear their clothes backwards, they'll walk backwards. And it's about seeing the flip side of things. It's about looking at things from a very different perspective. And a friend of mine, Jane Talbot, a couple of years ago, did something like that. For one of her very first adventures of 365 days of adventure, she walked down her local main street backwards, using the phone as a mirror to see, like a rear view mirror, to see where she was going. So of course she didn't fall over or get hit by a car or bump into someone who wasn't really aware that she was doing something less than totally usual. And I think we can probably say that for the last little while, things have been less than totally usual. There's this kind of idea that we're like attached to this bungee cord, where the unusual is what we're being pulled towards, and we're trying so hard to get back to the usual that we know, that we're pulling and pulling and pulling on that bungee cord, but it keeps twanging back to the not so usual. This could be a good example of trickster medicine and making it an ally. Instead of seeing it as a threat, instead of seeing it as an annoyance and getting really upset about it, which is something that, occasionally I manage to do, especially when things seem to be not going the way that I would like it to. But remember the law of attraction. When you start running into that energy and buying into that energy, it will sell you some more. So, lesson learned for now. Trickster medicine is there for a reason. It's very powerful medicine. In the Native American cultures, coyote is the trickster. There are many tricksters though. Here, fox is our trickster, the cunning one. Sly as a fox. Foxes are also guardians of the Fae. Very, very attached to the Fae. Or at least my guy is. But they're well known as tricksters. And did you know that Goldilocks was a trickster because she was actually a fox? She was a shape-shifting fox. If you come to one of our storytelling circles, you may hear that story. It's quite interesting. Trickster medicine, making it an ally, sounds counterintuitive. It's almost like, I'm setting myself up to be totally on the back foot all the time. Actually, it's setting yourself up to realise that you don't have to be on the back foot all the time, because the trickster will just wait for you to make the move that they're waiting for, and then will trick you. But actually what's happening is you're tricking yourself. You're falling into your own trap. It's like, what's in a name? I, being a vet nurse at one point, would recognise that people, perhaps unconsciously, would name their animals without thinking about the characteristics that are attached to the name that they're given. One of the best ones is Loki, Norse god of mischief and the moon. Now, if you look at Norse mythology, Loki's not just a simple little mischievous person. He's actually quite pushy with it. He pushes the envelope of mischief into almost cruelty at times. So there's something very strong and powerful there about how we look at who Loki was and what his powers were and what his gifts were through that power. So when you see a cat or a dog called Loki and they're acting less than totally sociably, maybe it's not their fault. Maybe they're just acting up to their name. Well, you know, there's an acceptance, right? Because on the surface what I just said sounds totally absurd. But there's an acceptance of the energy of that. When you see, like, grumpy cat, why do you think the cat's grumpy? Is it actively grumpy, or does it just have an unfortunate facial look? Confirmation. But then we have Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Each one of the dwarfs was a sneezy because they did, a grumpy because he was, a dog because he could be clever, very thoughtful, and dopey. Well, let's not get into that. Now, when you think about it, although I do have one that was a real trickster. There was a cat, and her name was Beauty. That cat was not of a beautiful temperament, shall we say. There was another one called Lovejoy. He neither brought love nor joy. Not to me, anyway. I'm still bearing the scars. Of course, he loved his owner, and his owner thought the world of him. But then she didn't have to do what we had to do for him. And he was very, very adamant that it was not going to happen. So there are flip sides to the giving of a name. Kind of Hioka. Everything's backwards. So think about that the next time you're going to name your puppy or your kitten. And pre-naming them. Because you like the name, because you like what it means, is their character going to fit? Could it be that Beauty and Lovejoy were just names that the owners liked, but actually the animals refused to fall into that idea of the energy of that name? So making it your ally. How do you make a trickster your ally? You recognise it for what it is. And you understand that their trickster is there for a reason. What is it that you're missing? What is it that you need to be really aware of, made specifically aware of, as to where you're going and what's going to happen, should you continue on your course? why do we use things like sly as a fox, snake in the grass, lithe like a panther? And I'm thinking Sean Connery there when I say that. Why do we use these things? Why do we, if we're so nature deficit disordered now, why are we still using animals and their supposed characteristics? They're not all purposefully slicket. They have to be, because we are not exactly all beauty and love joys ourselves when it comes to what we do about them, when we think they're vermin or when we think that they're a nuisance. It is a matter of how we think and what we perceive them to be. Power animal wise, tricksters are very, very powerful because of what I've said, the lesson that they bring. Oh yeah, you think you're going on so well, do you? Well, let's see how you work with this then. You want this, but you won't recognise that. What do you want, a piano to drop in your head before you will notice what's going on? If I send you this and it's wrapped up in a different package, will you understand that the energy behind it is the same and you will be falling into the same pattern as you have done before? That's kind of what Trickster's like. That's kind of what it's for. But that's just a teeny tiny bit. When we understand more about what Trickster Medicine is, it's easier to make it an ally. Because you get that feeling, you get to have a communication, a connection with it. And you can understand, oh, hang on a minute. Let's say, for instance, Mr. Fox is coming into my conscious awareness. I've seen him twice on television, and I've seen one walking up the road in front of me. What's that going to tell me? Now, some people would say, oh, that means something bad is going to happen. If you think it, it will be. Or it could be, oh, what's the interesting thing that's going to happen that I need to be aware of? That I can look out for? So it can be taken as an advance warning. Or you can start having some fun with it. Just depends on what your connection is with that particular energy. And if you would like to make connection with that particular energy and other energies and power animals, get in touch. There will be some work coming up soon on Eventbrite. It will be posted. So think about what's in a name. Think about why people change their names sometimes, because that changes the energy. It can also change a lot more. But you will never ever be anything but yourself. Just depends on how you feel about your name, or the name you're giving. After all, I think one of the best names I ever heard for a Labrador was Poubelle, which is French for bin. And I'll leave you with that, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.